When most people think of genetically modified organisms, crops come to mind, like the hyper-resistant wheat or the drought-tolerant corn that's been in the news a lot. Everybody knows about them. But what about genetically modified animals? Genetically modified animals will be coming into the food chain and herds of the world in the near future. But what will they accomplish? What's all the rush about getting to these genetically modified animals? To further this, we discuss a background of genetics, the modifications in question with their applications, and long-term goals for these genetic cattle. Now, to begin this process, gaining genes from one breed of cattle to another is not new in the cattle industry. People have for thousands of years invoked a process known as selective breeding to gain better traits in their herds, as well as avoiding inbreeding or father to daughter and granddaughter and so forth. For example, Beef Master Breeders United states Tom Lassiter, the creator of the breed, wanted a breed of cattle that was able to produce larger calves with better carcass quality to feed the growing market, as well as being drought and disease tolerant to better live in the harsh climates of South Texas, where his ranches were based, which he accomplished by breeding Herefords known for their disposition and meat quality, Shorthorns known for their milk quality, and Brahmas for their climate tolerance. Now, he did this by mixing Hereford Shorthorn cross cows with Brahma bulls, which give you that mix of half Hereford, half Shorthorn, 3/4 Brahma, which gives you an all-around great cow for South Texas. This is where the Beefmaster cattle breed was born, which countless years later, Mr. Lassiter's work is still feeding the American people and dominating the cattle markets. But this process of acquiring these genes together in one singular cattle breed did not happen overnight. This progress takes several generations and lines of cattle to accomplish this goal, which the use of genetic engineering and genetic modification can speed up this process and gain results quicker and provide for the people that need them the most. But how do the scientists today actually modify the genomes of these animals? The Journal of Animal Science and Biotechnology states that SCNT has been employed in which a somatic cell injected into the inoculated oocytes, then fused, activated, and cultured into vitro up the blastocysts. Scientists think that GMC can be produced relatively easily because genome-modified somatic cells can be reprogrammed into the pre-implantation stage. Only genetically modified cells are selected for SCNT, giving the outcome a higher chance for survival. Following this with a little bit simpler terms, scientists use what is called a piggyback gene to transport the newly spliced genes from the host embryo to undergo mitosis or cell splitting, cargoing into all of the animal's DNA, basically implanting a single genetic seed that we want to grow in this cow, putting it into an unborn embryo in a host cow, not the cow that produced this said egg. Now, with this, they have the ability to grow onto it and make a fully functioning cow with all that DNA to where it would function normally. Now, sometimes it is harder for it and it has somewhat a low growth weight at the time because sometimes it doesn't go all the way just right. But this also creates an animal with desirable genes that would have taken countless years of selective breeding. But what are some of the modifications scientists are trying to develop? One of the most useful is producing female cattle with more muscle mass to lessen the environmental effects. And I know you're thinking right now, why would female cows lessen the environmental effects? Well, one of the main problems faced by cattle farmers all over the world is the fact that male cattle, also known as bulls and steers when castrated, when used for beef, gain more muscle mass but in a longer time period. So it takes more time in the field and in feedlots. But on the other end of the spectrum, female cattle that are not kept as replacement heifers lack the muscle mass but gain weight quicker and produce more intermuscular fat, known as marbling, which gives the meat its flavor and taste, simply because of the female hormone estrogen. This is why cattle producers have implanted their feeder steers with estrogen pellets to put more weight on faster. But with the use of genetic modification, the use of artificial hormones would be a thing of the past, as well as using more of the heifers for meat, which with better taste from the larger amount of marbling and the same muscle structure as steers, lessening the environmental outcomes of longer wait times in feedlots and pastures, like I've said before. Another very helpful and needed genetic modification is the ability to withstand harsh conditions. Since every continent is different, cattle breeds from America and Europe would die from the land conditions of harsher climates. For example, in South Africa, along the Ivory Coast, there was a massive threat to cattle in the region, all because of a small fly called the tsetse fly. The University of Vienna states that the disease is caused by a parasite that enters the animal's blood as a result of the bite of the tsetse fly. Killing the animal slowly from the inside out. The scientific name of this disease is trypanosomosis. Trypanosomosis. Try saying that 3 times fast. But the Baoli people call it nagana, which translates to being in low spirits. Which, with this disease, the cattle just lay down and die. This disease kills millions of desperately needed cattle each year. But there is some good news in this situation. There is a species of African native cow that is resistant to the tsetse fly parasites, called the Baoli, belonging to the same African people of the same name. But this breed of cattle is a dwarf cattle breed, weighing in at only 500 pounds, making it hard to provide for an entire village. That's where genetic modification comes in. If we take the parasite resistance gene from the Baoli cattle and place it in a breed noted for both meat and milk quality, as well as already being able to withstand the harsh conditions that Africa is accustomed to, then we will be able to help feed the people of the world that need it the most, and have the ability to sustain large, healthy herds, and feed them for a lifetime. Finally, long-term goals for genetic modification of cattle. One of the main goals is to strengthen the ability to pull genes from one donor animal to another with higher success rates, which allows more producers to use this advanced technology. Another long-term goal includes helping to feed the rapidly expanding world without putting further stress on the ecosystem by using land previously unfit for cattle production, allowing us as a world to produce enough to feed the world. Now, my thoughts on this is that there is a lot of unfit land to where, like the Australian outback, nothing grows there because nothing can survive there easily. But if we take a highly, harsh conditioned gene from a cow that was, belonging there, I'm not saying like making 6-legged cows where they can run faster and you have more meat quality. I'm talking about giving them ability to build up in their climate that they have, giving them a higher chance of survival. Now, we need to produce enough feed the world so that we do not have to worry about feeding the world, so that everyone can have nutritious, life-sustaining protein to support them in all their undertakings. But more importantly, the major long-term goal for these genetic cattle is to bring the cattle market into the future, to help us stay with demand and lessen our effects on the ecosystem through these genetic modifications. A lot of seen in the news now is about how cows produce a lot more methane than anything. Now, genetic modifications can alter that gene to where they produce less methane because they can harness more of the abilities of the ruminant stomachs, since cows are 4-stomached animals, so that they can harness more from the protein of the grass that they eat, more from the food that they eat, to where they can build more up into muscle and release less. Now, in conclusion, genetic modifications are not far off from making it into the international food market, and in doing so will help sustain the cattle industries all over the world, while feeding the people that need it the most. All thanks to the scientists diligently working on developing new genes to help grow much needed protein for the world and to make the world a better place. Thank you.